I want to talk today about the differences or sometimes maybe similarities between sales professionals and communications professionals. This goes back to my journalism days where I'd be working in the newsroom in a commercial radio station 25 years ago. I'd be working with content, and up the stairs or in the office next door, they would be the sales executives selling advertising space for the radio station. So they're directly bringing in revenue, and myself and the other journalists, we're not, right? We're doing this thing that the radio station, they're like, well, we have to have news. I'm sure there's some benefits in having news, but we're not seeing it right now, and we can't spend it. We can't put our finger on this benefit that they're bringing in. News team is a necessary evil. Sales team, wow, they're magic. They're bringing in money. They're growing our business. Let's look after them. And I still see it today when I'm talking to organisations or when I'm in delivering training. Of course, they don't all have a sales team. But there's a good friend of mine that runs a sales team, and he's always telling me the things he's doing to keep his team working even at a higher level than they think they can. So he's always trying to come up with ways to get more out of them. So he brings in a competitive element. So there's like games, and there's, most improved person, first to hit their target, all that stuff. They celebrate each other's success. He goes out of his way to create a proper team, a team environment. He'll take them away for days. There's weekends away, there's holidays, there's prizes, there's trips. He brings people in, they get massages, they get movie nights, anything that he can think of, and he's forever racking his brains to come up with new ways to incentivize his sales team. And of course, what he didn't tell me was, but I figured this out, it's all done entirely for his own self-interest, because his team hitting their target is directly linked to him hitting his. So if his team perform well, then his job just gets a whole lot easier and he gets financially rewarded. But the end result is that he's working very hard to get the most or the best out of his people. Now, there's a side to sales that I really don't like, which is that all of this might contribute to just working people flat out, and then they burn out and then they leave. And I think when it's done wrong, or it's done in a purely financially driven way, I've seen salespeople get themselves in a right mess and live pretty shallow, horrible lives as a result of it. But I've also seen some examples where it works quite well. But what interests me is the way that the manager, so the head of the sales team, treats the staff. And this guy that I know, he's always on it. He's always there. He is a shoulder to cry on for these people. He is a motivator. He's a facilitator. He's a trainer. Like, whatever he needs to do, he's a confidant for a lot of these people. Whatever he needs to do to look after them and keep them performing at their best. And he genuinely perceives them as the most important people in the business. And if he has to wrap them up in cotton wool, that's what he does. What interests me is how then when we contrast that with the treatment of the communications professionals, the comms team, and often what I hear from them is, well, yeah, so-and-so's our boss, but they're never around. They're dragged into meetings. They're over here. They're up here. We don't see them. And what they would love is a bit of contact time with the boss, with the manager, with the head of comms. What they would love is to have good work being celebrated or showcased. They don't get that buzz. So again, when I was sitting in the radio station newsroom, sometimes we'd hear from upstairs everybody stamping their feet, or we'd hear like the Braveheart music playing or a hooter going off. And what that meant was that they just signed another client. So they were achieving success. Somebody'd done something brilliant and they're making a noise and it's up on the wall for everybody to see. I could walk through, or anybody could walk through the sales office and immediately see the value they were bringing to the organisation. You walked through the newsroom just as I walked through a comms office or a marketing suite, and it is not, most of them where I've seen, it is not immediate, not even the success that they bring. It's not even obvious what they're doing. I remember sometimes the managing director of the radio station would walk into the newsroom, and he'd say to us, "What are you up to? What are you doing?" And unfortunately, there were times when none of us could answer him. We had nothing to say. Now, if we can't even articulate it ourselves, what chance has the MD got in the management meeting when he's under pressure to cut the budgets? We've got to start speaking that language of success. We've got to fight back and make sure that the management are spending more time with their team, just looking after them, just making them feel good so that they can continue to perform at that high level. And then we've got to make sure that all of that is articulated through the rest of the organization so that a visitor or, senior management showing someone round can walk in and say, "This is our comms team. Aren't they brilliant?" And look up at the wall at all the successes, everything that they've achieved, the value that they're bringing in. If you can't treat yourself like that, you cannot expect anyone else in the organization to do it. Now, I get you that sales is directly bringing in revenue and comms isn't, but it is bringing in a value, it is bringing in a benefit. You might not have an exact science, you might not be able to display it as a monetary value, but you've got to do something. You've got to do something. Even if what you're doing is, digital or it's intangible, make a graph, make a picture, print it out, frame it, laminate it, make a gold disc. You've got to get stuff on the wall so that the value that you bring is immediately clear to the organization. The problem, of course, that we have, especially, former journalists, is you think, well, that's not real. It's all airy-fairy. It's all that. It's a game. You're playing a game. They're setting up in the budget meetings in the management office, and they're making decisions about your work and your future. The sales team have figured out how to play that game. If you're a manager of a comms team and you spend most of your time doing what the bosses want, which is hanging around in meetings and Teams calls with them and writing reports for them, and you never spend any time with your team, and you just keep doing what they're asking you to do, no wonder they're thinking of making redundancies, because you're clearly not that important, because they'll just turn around and say, well, we don't need you anymore. I mean, you're not doing anything else. All you're doing is serving us. Well, I can live without that, so you're done. You've got to articulate the value. It's got to be abundantly clear to anybody walking through the organization, the value that you bring, and you've got to make sure that you're spending quality time with your team being whatever they want you to be. I hope that helps. I know it needs a change of thinking. I suspect it's probably something that's been on your mind already. Do something about it, or we can come in, we can bring the different sides of your organization together and cultivate some of that honest discussion that's going to lead to change, that's going to lead to you and your team doing your best, which is all you really want at the end of the day.